was yelling at somebody, please wake her up. Because she just looked perfect. You know, she was like, no offense to my other kids, but she was like the prettiest baby we'd ever had. I mean, you just pick up her hand, you know, and it was just like cold, you know, but you were just like, open your eyes, just please, just do the thing, like breathe. Just I'll give anything for this to all go away. And you just don't know what to do. Death is like, they should teach a class, because you got a lot of decisions to make. You're like, when do I give her back for good? Like, when do you bury her? Do you cremate her? Do you know? And I got 6 kids at home that are waiting on a newborn. Like they don't have a clue.
Welcome to the Good Grief, Good God Show, hosted by Grammy nominee and Emmy award-winning hit songwriter Brad Warren of the Warren Brothers. Join Brad monthly on the first and third Tuesdays in audio or on YouTube for raw, honest conversation about surviving things that suck. For today's episode, Brad welcomes singer-songwriter, author, and 2022's Billboard Music's Top Country Song Award winner for the smash hit Fancy Like, Walker Hayes. Walker's music reflects his personal experiences exploring the highs and lows of fatherhood, sobriety, marriage, and the grief of losing a newborn child. His authentic storytelling and genuine connection with fans have established him as a prominent voice in country music. I'm producer Matt Pt2. To learn more about today's guest, Brad, and the show, check the description where you'll find clickable links to access this episode's audio and video links, to connect to the show on social media, and to visit goodgriefgoodgodshow.com. On the behalf of Brad's wife and executive producer, Michelle Warren, and segment producer and guest booker, Lisa Bolt, thank you for tuning in. The Good Grief, Good God Show is brought to you in loving memory of Sage Michael Warren.
I can name you the people that were, I heard that song, by the way, and my brother's like, you got to hear this song. I'm like, man, if someone wants a sermon, listen to that song.
Oh,
like that's
Craig's song.
Yeah. Song Craig. But there, you can tell that Al Andrews was my guy. Porter's Call. I don't know if you're familiar with them. Whatever, but Al was the first guy. He knew what I was. He knew who I was. He knew I was lying. He knew I was drunk.
Right.
And he loved me anyway. And he was cool to me. And
life changing.
I didn't get sober right when I met him and we started meeting with him, but I got ready to. It was like, he was the first guy that like, I was like, he's not judging me no matter what. And he would never take sides, but he would look at Michelle and say, do you realize how hard he works? Like, man, no one ever said that before in my life. And then he would look at me and say, do you realize how much she worries about you when you're, whatever it was. And that was my Craig, you know?
Yeah. Well, and you and I don't know about, I'm still figuring this stuff out, but I think I'd spent, from my childhood, I had spent a lot of my life putting people through the test, like meeting them and going, trust me, you're going to leave. I can make you leave. And then when they leave, I push them away. I'm like, why'd you leave? That was mean, and I play the victim, like nobody loves me, and I'm the guy. I'm like, get the freak out, and Lainey had never left, which was crazy, and she still hasn't. But I put Craig through the test. I didn't respond with like kindness. He showed up. It's just interesting to me. Craig, honestly, I just see Craig as a lot like Christ. He had Christ living inside him. And what I mean by that is, in a world and a lifetime of spending my life not just pushing people away, but watching people go, you don't check these boxes, so I'm gonna get further from you. Which I was used to that, almost to a point where you take pride in it. You're like, I love being the outcast, and wrongfully. And then it's like Craig was the opposite, and that stands out. Like I remember driving home from their house one night, hammered with Lainey and the kids, and another statement where I go, oops, I wasn't supposed to say that about a Christian, but I said, why do they love us so much?
Wow. Just
sitting there silently in the car, I just go, Lainey, why do they love us so much? Because I wasn't used, and that's just life. Then you take the music biz, where you're only useful, and if you're not, where's everybody? I'm working at Costco and I'm eye to eye with executives messing up my strawberry stack, looking for the ripest one. And I'm like, this is embarrassing, And so when you're the leper and somebody wraps all their flesh around and just hugs you, it will mess with you.
It breaks you in the way that you need to get broken. I mean,
that's what Craig did. And it didn't matter my drunkenness. It didn't matter my language. It didn't matter my lifestyle. It didn't matter that we were driving in one car with kids on the floorboard at red lights. They were for us. They came to the mess. He was the first to show up at a show and the last to leave. He fed us, never made us pay. He just joined the journey.
I just got a thing that I think every Christian should think about this. There might not be a Christian to be an overused word, whatever. But those of us who believe, if there's not somebody that says about you, why do they love us so much? You need to find someone to make you feel that way. Because we all want to be right and we want to be. I get the rules. I understand why they're there. Some of them, but if there's nobody that says why do they love us so much,
right,
about you, maybe we're missing the number one ingredient. That's a pretty good litmus test. That's awesome. Yeah,
and we everybody wants to belong, and I belong with the party crowd. That's that. And so Craig, he's making an impact, and my sober story is really, really interesting. Craig, the song Craig is an interesting story too. They kind of parallel each other, I guess. But so I've been drinking since I was 13. I'm 36 years old at this point. I'm working at Costco every day, and I wake up on a Saturday and I feel like I'm gonna die. I mean, my body is sick, and I'm not a doctor guy. I don't like the doctor. I'm afraid of the doctor. I don't like the way it smells. I don't like the way doctors look at me. You talk about control. What were you talking about? The haircut? Dude, somebody standing around me with needles and white gloves and stuff, and I'm no sir. So I'm physically, I feel ill, which is fine. I'm just not a details guy. Like I don't ponder, oh, my stomach felt different today. I'm just not that guy. So I wake up on a Saturday and it's almost like I detest alcohol, which is weird because I would wake up and just start every day, normal, put in my coffee, put some, a handle under my seat, always alcohol. And I didn't drink for one day. And sobriety, at first it hurt a little bit. And then by like Wednesday, I feel like a new human. I mean, I'm like, dude, sobriety is underrated. I'm like, I could run. I'm fast. I'm like, I go to the gym and I'm not jacked up. I'm like, it's sobriety. It's funny. I kind of got addicted to sobriety. It became
it's a superpower, by the way. Yeah. It is a superpower on every level. Yeah.
It was wild. And I was just like, holy cow. And I'm like, what do you know? A week turns into a month, and then a month turns into a couple. And I mean, I'm on the right track. And 2-3 years go by, and some folks are proud, interested, or whatever. I go to an AA meeting here. I actually grew up going to like family day at AA, just stuff like that. And so I didn't have like a lot of respect, but so my career kind of picks up all because of Shane McAnally. I can't believe I haven't mentioned him, but while I was working at Costco, I met him in line at a Smoothie King. Shane McAnally is in line. I am desperate. I'd literally tap him on the shoulder and just say, man, I need a home. I need somebody behind me. I'm embarrassed to be this guy. And he gives me his email address, and he calls me 10 months later when I'm at Costco, and he says, man, he literally says this. He goes, man, for the life of me, I can't get anybody to cut your music, but I can't stop listening to it. And he says, do you want to just sing it? You want to just sing it? So again, another one of those, why don't you just be the singer dude?
Shane McAnally is the first human being that my brother and I met in Nashville.
Crazy.
30 years ago. 30 years ago. We didn't even live here. We took a visit. He was a waiter at Bennigan's, and we had a friend. The only friend we knew in town was a host at Bennigan's. Yeah. And he said, hey, this is Shane. He's a singer. So we pleasantries and saw, I knew he sang and wrote, but for those people who don't know, I mean, he's literally one of the best songwriters to ever.
He's incredible.
Walk the planet. Yeah.
And he took me under his wing. And in the meantime, I had I call it a hit called "You Broke Up With Me."
Oh yeah,
that
was when I was like, oh damn, Lisa, you're right, because Lisa Bill had been telling me about you for 10. I'm like, damn, that guy's great.
Yeah,
why didn't you tell me about this guy?
But it was
amazing. Yeah,
it was cool. We had a moment, and it paid off a lot. Like we were kind of underneath, some financial stress, and it got us out of the weeds, and it was really cool. Things were really going well musically. Still not, Mr. Believer guy, and still friends with Craig, and actually, this before then, Craig gave us the van.
Oh yeah,
I didn't tell you that was before. This was before Shane, but out of the blue, Craig knows that Lainey and I have one car, and we're riding around. We had our sixth kid at this point. And every time we go up and down Franklin, really the only time we drive with all the kids in the car was to Puckett's Boathouse. And so we're driving up 96, and there's cops usually at this gas station. And my kids would know to dive down onto the floorboard. And they thought it was fun. They thought it was a fun game.
Yeah.
And I wasn't like, hey, this is
really good up in the back of a pickup truck.
Well, yeah. And I'm looking right, and Laney's like nursing a kid in the, passenger seat, and Craig knew that, and he was genuinely concerned, and so Craig's not by world standards, you wouldn't be like, man, Craig's loaded. Yeah. He's just checking it, kind of like me, and he shows up at my son Beckett's baseball game unannounced, and he hops out of his van, and his wife pulls up in another car and blindsides us, and he's like, man, we prayed about it, and we just want to give you this van, and here's the title and the keys, and all you got to do is sign. And man, I feel like by the power of the Holy Spirit, I am becoming better at this. But at that point in my life, I'm not a believer. I do not agree with whatever Craig is selling. I kind of have that attitude as far as that. He never preaches to me. He never talks about the Bible to me. But
you're waiting for it.
He just does. Yeah, I'm always like, here, whatever. But he shows up with this van, and I honestly, this is a great example of, I think, the sad truth about some people is that even when somebody from the depths of their soul really want to love on someone like me, it just pisses me off. And I was ready to fight Craig I know it doesn't make sense, but I was ready to punch him in the face. I mean, I was embarrassed. This is spectacle. My family, his family's watching him give me a vehicle. And even saying this out loud doesn't make sense.
No, it makes sense.
But I was furious. I was like, who do you think you are? Like, no, I don't need your van. I did need a van. Yeah. I don't want your van. I needed to want the van. It was just so, the whole interaction to me now looking back, it's like, why didn't I get on my knees and cry?
I get it. It's called pride.
The guy? Yeah, it was. It was so much pride.
And the truth is, the van is the sermon.
Yeah.
The van is the sermon.
Yeah.
It's what he didn't have to preach.
Right.
He didn't have to say anything. He
did
what you're supposed to.
Right.
He did what everyone talks about instead of talking about. Amazing.
I know.
Wow.
And so anyway, we have this debacle. I get kind of rude. I know that I didn't even accept. I was kind of like, man, I'll take it. I'll borrow it for a minute. And as I drove home, I didn't like love Jesus that night or anything, but I do remember driving home, and I looked in the rear view, and all my kids had a seatbelt. And the knowledge of the turmoil, the struggle, the consequences of my pride were revealed to me in their safety, and the love of Christ and Craig. You know, I got teary-eyed, man, on the way home, and I was like, I remember getting home and being like, I can't explain who does that, you know. And then I tried. I don't say I love, you know, my you know, sadly, I lost my dad. I don't know if I ever really told him how I felt. You know, I got 4 brothers. I don't know if I've ever looked him in the face and said, I love you. I feel like they'd be like, what's wrong with Walker? And I would do the same with them. I'd be like, you going to die or something? Yeah. You know? And so I didn't really know. Every time I try to thank Craig in person, it just felt, I just started writing this song called Craig, you know, and it was uncomfortable. It was like, man, I feel like this is about Jesus, but I don't want it to be about Jesus at all, you know? And so I wrote it, you know, I wrote him that song, but Craig just continued to walk with us in life. You know, him and his family, they just got their hands dirty, you know, with us, and we were a mess, an absolute mess. And so You Broke Up With Me happens. Craig's excited, whatever. I get to sing on TV, and Lainey is due. She's basically due the week that I'm supposed to have my first singing on the CMT Awards. And we're good, you know. I'm like knocking on the door to famous. Like nobody's like, oh, dude has made it, you know, but I'm able to pay some bills. By then, you know, you know, life was pretty steady. Everything's going, although I am on the road a lot, you know, I'm always gone, and I'm probably not prioritizing things like, you know, the work is consuming my life. I am sober by the grace of God at that point, but the morning that the CMT Awards were supposed to happen, I was scheduled to come in town, sing, see our kid be born, and then leave for some pretty big gigs. And honestly, it just as I say that schedule, I'm like, what an idiot! Like what an idiot, an absolute dumbass. Who does that? Like who, you know? So
I was flying home from across the country for both of my first kids.
Yeah,
because they were early. Because you
crazy.
Go right up to the time.
Yeah. You schedule. You're like, let's give myself and
you give my wife 30 minutes to have the baby and
right.
make sure I'm home for that 30 minutes.
It's stupid. Yeah. And anyway, Lainey goes into labor. It gets super scary at home. Heartbeat is lost at the house. Ambulance, crazy. Lainey goes unconscious. We're riding in life just shuts. I mean, it went from like 60 to 0, you know, just instantly. And it's probably going to get a little emotional here, but so we're in the ambulance. Lainey and I's parents aren't in the greatest place. You know, I've always been kind of the dude, you know, whatever. And so we're on the way, and I'm like, man, I got nobody to call but Doug, you know. So I call Lainey's dad. I'm helpless. I honestly, you would never want me to fly a plane, because if it's crashing, it's over. Like I emotionally I'm emotionally like I don't know what to do. You know, I wish I was Superman, but I am Clark. I'm just like, you want me to write a song about it? You know, but you know, my kids are still asleep. Lainey and I arrived with Lainey to the hospital. We're at the Williamson County Med place, whatever. I'm just standing back. You know, obviously stuff is urgent. Doctors flying around, nurses flying around, you know, telling me what, blah, blah, blah. Everything happens so fast. And Lainey goes away, and I'm just in this room by myself. And honestly, I haven't really had a coherent word with Lainey in like 40 minutes, probably, you know, since we were at the house. She hadn't made a lot of sense. You know, she was just kind of out. And 15, 20 minutes go by. And, you know, honestly, I hate to say this, but I'm still like, what's tonight look like? Like, what is going on? You know, what is happening? And a knock comes on this door, and I'm in the room where they assessed her and then wheeled her off. And the nurse opens the door, or the doctor, the actual doctor, and she goes, "It's a girl," and we tried to resuscitate, but we couldn't, and they were like, we tried for 10 minutes and we couldn't. And honestly, it's just so fat. Even telling the story, I'm like, God, really, life went from like pretty good to just shitty, like super fat. I mean, just like, breaks on everything.
And kind of lets you know how unimportant all the important things you're going to do are. What would happen if you're about to lose a child? Well, all of it stops. So none of it was that important.
Yeah.
And then that's important.
Yeah.
It's helped me get my priorities the hardest way on earth to get my priorities in my head and go, of this stuff's not that important because it just can just stop on a dime.
Yeah. And so she goes, and so I'm in the room and she says, and I'm like, so she's dead? Like the girl. And I didn't know it was a girl. We didn't know, But then she starts going to Lainey. She's like, Lainey's bleeding bad, and she's like, I don't know what's about to happen. We're doing our best to stop the bleeding. And I've never been more confused because I was like, I want to hold my daughter, but she's dead. And I was like, but I don't want to hold my dead daughter without my wife. I want to hold my dead daughter with my wife for the first time. And honestly, as a husband, I'm just feeling like a jack. I'm just like, I don't know. I'm like, I feel like I should know how to make this situation better. And then this is stupid thought, but I'm like, dude, I know this is gross, but I'm like, I could have taken a knife and just cut her out like before the heartbeat stopped. You just start thinking these wild, like, cause I'm literally like an hour ago, everything was okay. Like everything was, it was alive. She was alive. And then now I'm like, what'd I do wrong? And
it's another thing I learned from your book. It doesn't matter. And I have experienced this with a lot of dads that I talk to. I have a big group of them. No matter how it happens, you find some way to blame yourself.
Oh, yeah.
You find some guilt somewhere in there. That's just a really common reaction. Obviously, there was nothing you could do.
But. Yeah. So that day, I'm just sitting in the, finally, like an hour later, the doctor comes back and she goes, I don't know how, I really don't know how, but Lainey stopped bleeding. And I've never seen, I hope I never see my wife. She looked dead. When I went in to see her, she was freezing cold. I'm talking about like lifeless cold. And, just, out with the two, down, everything down her throat. And I was just like, oh shoot, and I knew she started kind of waking up but she was unconscious, and I had a whiteboard, and dude, I didn't know what to say. Like, I didn't know that she would ask, she would put her hand on her stomach and look confused. And I was like, she didn't do it. She did not hear. She didn't she's not, it was a girl. I'm telling her with writing, I'm like, it's a girl. And then, and my wife like convulses, like basically convulses herself in pain back to sleep. And then she would wake up and do it all again. And I even asked the nurse, I was like, is this good? Like, do I just need to shut up? Like, and not, but my wife would demand answers, when she would wake up, because she was coherent enough to know, but then when she would go back, drift off, she would forget it all. And so we just do this miserably, forever. And then, finally Lainey comes back enough and she wakes up, and it's just, man, watching Lainey, and that you talk about just feeling like a loser of a man, your favorite human. I could always make Lainey laugh, even if I said you're just like your mom and she hated me, I could always do something, to get her, bring her back, and for everything to be okay. And this was just a humbling moment, and it lacked, this was the beginning of, that's kind of what normal was like for us for a little while. And, but Craig and Laura, dude, they were the only hands that held, you know, our dead daughter with us. You know, we passed around this cold shell, you know, just this baby. And it was so sad. I mean, I wasn't a believer, but I was yelling at somebody, please wake her up, you know, and because she just looked perfect. You know, she was like, no offense to my other kids, but she was like the prettiest baby we'd ever had. I mean, she had just full hair, just like, Lainey carried her longer than any kid. She was like the biggest baby. She was perfect. She just was dead. And I mean, you just pick up her hand, you know, and it was just like cold, you know, but you were just like, open your eyes, just please, just do the thing, like breathe. Just, I'll give anything for this to all go away. And, you know, that was a weird process. Like, you just don't know what to do. Death is like, they should teach a class on what do you do when something dies? Cause you got a lot of decisions to make. You know, like, when do I give her back for good? Like, when do you bury her? Do you cremate her? Do you know, and I could tell.
And
like,
you're in a haze while you're making these decisions that will be with you forever. You're absolutely in a haze.
Totally. And I got 6 kids at home that are waiting on a newborn. Like, they don't have a clue. You know, they're like, but Craig, I asked Craig went and got my oldest daughter, and man, I just needed her friendship, man. I mean,
how old was she at the time?
She was, I mean, this was 9 years ago. So Leela, shoot, was she that young? No, this was 6 years, 6 years ago. Leela was, what's 8 minus 6? 12, almost 13. Yeah. So not old enough to do how she's helping, you know, but she shows up. And for the first time, man, seeing her, just like, it broke the dam. I mean, I don't know why. When we made eye contact, because I just was not prepared, because she was still happy. She walked in, and Craig had not. He was just like, well, we'll see, you know. And when she walked in, her smile I just was like, I'm sorry, you know. And then she came in, and but we held, you know, we began grieving. Lainey was just I've never seen her just sad. I've never seen her that sad, you know, and then the next few days through the burial process were pretty miserable. One funny moment, which I swear this was from God, and I didn't even believe in God, but we went to the burial place, and Lainey and I are just zombies. We're trying to pick out, I don't know, you pick out the box and you buy the land or whatever. And
oh yeah, that's the worst thing. I mean, unfortunately, I know what you mean. It's like whatever.
Yeah,
the best.
Well, yeah, and you
yeah.
I don't know about y'all, but like, they show you a plot of land, and you're like, do you even see my daughter? Like, this is nothing compared to my daughter. But then you have mercy. You're like, nothing's going to be good enough. Yeah. But this was a blessing. We were, you know, our life is wild, and we got kids everywhere and dogs everywhere. And Lainey and I, well, the dude that was helping us, his name was Barry. And I was like, that's just funny that you work here and your name is Barry and you guys bury people. And then he takes us to this plot of land. He shows us this land. He kind of looks at me like, you okay? And but we're looking at this plot of land, and he's actually embarrassed because this big nasty dog from next door runs into this little area and lifts his leg and takes a whiz on somebody's grave.
So like, this is going to happen, right?
Oh yeah. And Lainey and I we went from crying to just laughing so hard. And we really needed that. But we buried Oakley, and I asked Craig to do the service for Lainey, just for Lainey. I don't give a shit what Craig had to say. I was like, whatever, man. You can make a sermon. You can talk about whatever you want. This is just for Lainey. I'm not going to not let her write whatever Bible verse she wants to put, you know. Yeah. And But he does the thing, and we bury her. And me and my sons, the landscape dude let us. I don't know why. I just wanted to fill the hole up myself, and so me and Chapel and Baylor filled the hole up with dirt, and that night, dude, it was it. It was like, I just was like, I don't know what was going on. I mean, I just had enough. And so I'm super mad. And I'm mad at, it's funny, it's kind of how I felt the night with the car. Like I'm mad at Craig. I don't know why. It didn't make sense, but I was like,
well, it's hard to be mad at someone you don't believe in. So
yeah,
you got to find the replacement.
Exactly. Yeah. And I was just like, man, I'm just
if that doesn't
pissed.
tell you God's real, nothing will.
I know.
Who are you mad at then?
I know. I was furious, man. I mean, I remember just remember a lot of acts of anger. But I left the house and I get in my car and I drive. It's kind of funny. I don't know if this bar's there, but like I just left that day and I drive to a bar in Franklin and I see 3 dudes at this bar. And basically I just planned. I mean, I was like, I'm going to go in. I'm going to have, a Dos Perros and about 4 shots. And I'm going to go. I'm going to piss those guys off. And I'm going to either get the shit kicked out of me, but I'm going to give them hell. Like I'm going to go and I'm going to get arrested and I don't care. And I'll probably try to punch the cop. Like I just wanted, like if there was like a body detonator, I just wanted to hit it and just, I don't know. It was weird. And I get to this bar and my wallet isn't in the door of my Honda. And so I drove back home. And when I came in, I saw Lainey all by herself, just all alone, just sitting on the couch, just kind of staring into nowhere, and I just, it was kind of that rearview mirror where I just go, so that's kind of human I am right there. Here is quite possibly the greatest person who knows and loves me, and I am so selfishly focused on my grief. I don't know where my kids are. I don't know. I didn't even know my wife is sitting in here in the dark by herself. I was just going to go heap problems onto our problem.
And her too.
Oh, on her. Yeah. Like, what would that have, And so I'm feeling pretty nasty. And I told Lainey, I was like, this is what's up. And she helped me. She found an AA meeting. And it's all kind of a blur, but I drove there, walked in. I didn't say hey to anybody. I sat down. I remember looking at the dirt from the gravesite on my shoe. And the first dude that got up, he said something. His first sentence was, I was angry. And, he told his story. And that meeting got me through a tough night. I left. Wasn't in the mood to talk to any. I didn't say one single word to anybody, but that was a pivotal AA meeting for me. But, you can see what's happening. Life is really humbling me, but also reminding me, it's that whole C.S. Lewis quote, like, you don't know how bad you are till you try to be good, And I'm really, really what I'm being pointed at is not that I need salvation from losing a kid, not that I need a big hit. It's like I need somebody to rescue me from me.
Yeah.
Because I will end it all. I mean, I am going nowhere but death if it's up to me. That's, to me, that's the resounding, like, hey, this, right? And, I try to get back, we did know music for a while and Lainey and I, we grieve. And, that process was difficult. on our marriage. She grieves really sad, and I grieve really mad, and they're, so that was interesting. And, but yeah, I mean, that I eventually try to not be terrible, but I'm just constantly reminded that I am. I get back on the road. I try to make it about the fans, not about me, but it eventually is about me. And one night on the bus, Lainey and I, we talk every night, and we're still kind of sad, just trying to get on with life, 6 months, a year later. And I don't know what happened this night, but I called her, and we're talking about Jesus, and I don't know why. And I said, do you know anybody that's as gross as me that has ever been better, like been fixed, And she was like, well, Paul was, and I said,
most of the disciples.
Yeah, right. Well, and my response was, I was like, Paul doesn't count because he's in the manual. And
he's a fictional character in the manual.
I was like, he cheats.
There's no real Paul.
I was like, you're cheating. I was like, give me somebody now, And it's crazy, but man, that night, I don't know. I guess I was just like, I was just really desperate, And she said somebody had recommended her a book by a lady named Rosario Butterfield. And I read like one book every 10 years. I'm the worst reader. I fall asleep when I start reading, but I got this book, and this lady's testimony, her pride and her disdain and her claim of hypocrisy to the church was so similar to my wrongful thought, my thought. She would talk about the feel of a bulletin and how nasty that would make her feel, and I was like, dude, I got goosebumps, and she would drive to this parking lot and watch people walk in and then go home, but she had a Craig, and her Craig's name was Ken. And I was like, man, this is weird, the parallel of what's going on here. And I literally read that book overnight. When the bus dropped me off the next morning, I pulled my hoodie up and walked into Barnes & Noble and bought a Bible. And I hid that Bible in a plastic bag for a month, because I was not about to go up to Lainey and be like,
I'm reading the
Bible.
Bible.
Guess what? I'm reading the Bible because I'm really struggling, And but man, honestly, what got me, which I never heard from scripture or preached or anything, is that they were all idiots, just like me. You know what I mean? Like from literally Genesis on, everybody was stupid. It wasn't dare to be David, or it was like, no, these
David was a pretty bad guy.
idiots.
You know what I mean? He did some bad,
completely
he did some
terrible
bad shit.
things.
Yeah.
And
he was a man after God's own heart. So
right.
surely I'm okay with being a drunk.
Right. And so that's to me, that was the evidence. What was, I guess, the spiritual depravity I was feeling was that it was in scripture, that I heard people going, dang, I messed up. I need a savior. And really that sentence, I need a savior, that hit me, that's, again, to me, that's the core of the gospel is getting to that sentence, and not saying I need a savior because I'm out of money or my circumstance. It's, I need a savior because I'm pretty dark. Yeah. I'm a pretty dark person.
I don't know exactly. I mean, I got a lot of questions when I get there.
Yeah.
And I'm getting to kind of the wrap up. I know you have to go today.
No.
But I can do 4 hours with you. So, but complete surrender is the only thing I can find that's absolutely necessary.
Sit.
Just complete surrender.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take theology or book knowledge or whatever. It's complete surrender. Whatever it is, I'm cool with being wrong about all of it, but that. Like when I get there, I know I'm going to lay down and go, hey, whatever, man, whatever I was wrong about, maybe we should all have been speaking in tongues and I shouldn't have made fun of them.
Right.
My bad. You know, but like that complete surrender it's when you're in the place where that's all you got left. It's a pretty cool place to be.
It's amazing.
Same thing with sobriety. I mean, it's very similar.
It is. But yeah, I mean, now, Oakley would be 6 and her life, not that we needed this to happen, but I mean, her life has impacted people, so that takes the in vain, part of that away. But honestly, she's not the one I'm the most excited to meet, when this is all said and done, man. I mean, I want to see Jesus, face to face.
I always say I can't wait to see him second because I want to see my son first.
Oh yeah,
it's a 1-2 punch. I'm not sure who's there. My dad's third.
If he's holding her, that'd be sick. But it's just like I said. Her life, it's still a mystery to me. That part of it. Being a dad is the most humbling experience of all time. I mean, I feel like I'm sorry. That's the most, more than I love you, I say I'm sorry, over and over.
And man, what a great thing to be a gift to be able to give to your kids. I'm sorry, I don't have all the answers. It's one of those, there's a million things I want to ask you. So we're getting like, if I can wrap up a couple things I want to say before I leave. We haven't really, this is not the purpose of this. Thank you for all of that you coming here and doing this and sharing, but like your music is genius. It's literally genius. And I know that you're self-deprecating and I get that, but literally your take is so unique and original and fresh and I mean, but without the Applebee song, everybody wants to hear fancy but you mentioned Dave Ramsey in that Taylor Swift song. I'm a Dave Ramsey kind of guy.
Yeah.
The kids are probably kind of. It's very unique and it's. I just want to say it's amazing.
Thanks,
I know you
man.
self-deprecate on it, and the other thing is I always have a question for everyone. And It's like a 2-part question, and then so we'll end it with this. It's the question is, and you may have already talked about it, but it's like, what's the worst thing that ever happened to you? And then what's the best thing that came out of that?
I mean, shoot. Yeah, I have. I mean, we have talked about it. I mean, the word, it's funny. I like if I mean, the worst thing that's ever happened to me is losing a kid. I can honestly, even when I kind of relive the story, I have this tendency. It's stupid to do because you can't go backwards, but I still am like, I should have done this, or if I'd only I could have, life would be so different, But at the same time, I know, man, Lainey and I would both agree. Like if our house was burning down, and you were like, you can go in and grab one thing. I know this doesn't make sense, but I would go grab that. I would go grab that experience, that loss. It has completely made me see this reality, this side of heaven through a different lens. And I don't love the way I had to see that, but I love looking at life as not the ultimate eternal reality, if that makes any sense.
That makes perfect sense, because I was saying that I've said the exact same thing. I don't like how I got here.
Yeah.
Man, I wish I could go tell my 20-year-old self
Yeah.
Share this, put this in a bottle and share this, which is, whatever, run the car into a tree, whatever the thing materially that was there, whatever it might have been. Like, I'm better at everything since I lost my kid. It's a terrible way to get it, but there's a little bit of, bring it on. Pain?
Right.
I can take some pain, Bring it on. So bring on the pain. Help, service. Oh, it's not supposed to be convenient when I need to do it.
Right.
I need to show up for people even when it's not convenient.
Right.
And I show up. All those things that I'm not engineered to do. I just want to take care of me, fill it full of alcohol, drugs, whatever it is, feel good. And then everyone would say, oh, poor Brad. And, all of that stuff I am so much better at after this experience. And that is the gift of this. There's a lot of gifts in this. I used to be afraid to fly. I talk about it on here too. Since my son died, I kicked 2 ships, whatever, bouncing all over the sky with drink carts hitting the ceiling, and my wife and I are sitting there giggling, and honestly praying for the person I can see who's scared, because I'm like, I used to be scared like that, so dumb.
Right.
There's a million little gifts in this tragedy and the grief that we wouldn't take it back. I mean, if I could make my decision, I'd take my son back and I'd get rid of the thing. But I agree with you. If I could say, what's the best thing about you? It's like my son and the fact that he passed, and for the first time in my life, maybe I reacted to something the right way. Yeah. When it happened.
Yeah. No, I mean, we classify it as, the absolute worst, but the most valuable experience we have yet. I mean, I don't want to do that again.
I hope it's the most valuable. Don't give me any more value.
And then what's the
best thing that ever came out of it? I think that's probably.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, what came out of that is ultimately for me, again, I wish surrender was easier to me, it's exactly like Craig. I'm always like, man, if you're a denier of the Lord, if you're refusing to accept Jesus, I tend to believe that maybe you just don't understand, or you just really haven't heard the gospel. You know what I mean? Because when you know Jesus, there's absolutely no sane reason.
You just need a van instead of a sermon.
Yeah.
You haven't you haven't met the real guy yet.
Right. Yeah. And back to your, back to your thing about church, the Bible is, church is screwed up in the Bible, and we're still
Jesus
screwing it
up.
Jesus was
most critical of them.
Yes.
And that.
Completely. I mean, the Old Testament is like tabernacle screwed up, this place screwed up, altars messed up, priests screwed up, and then and now we're like, why are churches so bad? You're like, dude, it's because they're run by humans.
It's the only time he lost his temper.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's, I don't know why people are surprised when they're like, pastor cheats on white, you're like, dude, he's a person, but I mean, that ultimately, that was the best thing for me. And honestly, that's all that as a dad, 10 years ago, I probably would have been like, go get your dream, dad. Let's hit more jacks, dad. You can do whatever you put your mind to, dad. And now ultimately I'm kind of like, I'm just begging God, to reveal himself to my kids each and every day, despite just how I screw up and how I can fail as a father. I really just want him to grab them, and that's good. We're good. Just do that. Yeah. Please, God.
Not the churchy way, but just the take out, make them complete. Get them full.
Just get them. Yeah. And
then everything really will be okay.
It will,
regardless of whether it's okay or not.
Their circumstances won't matter, and you talk, you mentioned, Fancy, like, man, if there's one thing I've learned from success and fame is it's the biggest letdown. It's the biggest.
It never feels like it was supposed to.
It is literally the biggest cup of nothing I've ever been handed. Money is the biggest pain. I was so much more financially healthy when I never had any money. It's funny.
My brother always says I never worried about money till I had a little bit.
I know. And now I'm like, I don't know. But yeah, the fame thing, it's funny. It's and the success thing, it's quite humorous.
you have a great take on it, and that's so refreshing because it is so. I mean, and we're in a business where it's like everyone clamoring to get to hell.
Yeah,
you know, I need to get to that because you know where hell is? It's at the top.
It is
the top of whatever is hell because you look up and you have accomplished nothing and you're all alone.
Yeah,
and we're all stepping over each other to get there.
I know.
And my greatest gratitude now is that God gave me a front row seat on the Money and Fame Doesn't Make You Happy movie. And I stopped trying to care what people think.
Yeah.
And I said that. I didn't care what anyone thought, but I just wanted you to think I didn't care what you thought.
Yeah.
It was very,
I know that. Yeah.
And when my son died, I just stopped caring what people thought because it didn't matter. You know what's ironic about that? I think probably people think a lot more of me.
Yeah.
Without that concern.
Right.
I can say a yes and a no, and it can be a complete sentence. But man, you have a great take on it. I think we've in passing. I never really knew you before this, but I love your music. I love the sarcasm. I love the humor. I love the spirituality, the depth. It's very unique. But just sitting here with you for this long, man, you're a great guy. Really happy for the music business that it gets to have you in it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Hey man, thanks for being here, brother. I just made you late for something.
No,
I'm sorry.
We're good.
My bad.
That's awesome.
I tried. It was so much though. I tried.
Good. Thank you.
Dude, I mean, that was
awesome.
Incredible.
I appreciate
it. Dude, I really appreciate it.
Dude, anytime. Love to do it again. Come on.